Angelica. And hey, Angelica was up till 2 in the morning with her parents setting this all up on Thursday night. So can we say like well done to So this was a great honor and a collaborative approach for this. You know, and I'm not a very religious person, but there is a scripture that says when 2 or more people gather in my name, I'm there with you. So I'd like to think we're gathering in Nick and in Pauline's name, and they're here with us. They would have loved this event. Pauline was president of every association you can think about. Somebody called her like a bonsai queen, and I think she's definitely royalty. And Nick probably would not have liked this crowd, but but I think in his heart he maybe would have shed an internal tear for the love that he's getting too. For those who don't know, Nick Lenz was also called the Ogre. He was actually a very kind person, but he did have an ogreish sense to him sometimes. Nick talks about his style being all about motion, about people getting up off the toilet, grabbing a drink, dancing. You know, he was very irreverent, but also really approached great technique and great style. So some fun things about the pots here. He did beautiful landscapes that he would kind of paint onto the pots. He liked little ceramics, and we'll talk about that in a second. But just real quick stories about here. Chris Springer did the majority of work setting this up, and he talked about that Nick said, hey Springer, as Chris likes to say, hey Springer, this is the first wheel thrown pot that I made. And Chris was like, oh my God, and he accepted it, and he gave it to him, and he was telling the story later to John Romano, another student of Nick and friend of Nick, and John started laughing when when Chris was telling him the story. And Chris was like, why are you laughing? He's like, you'll see. A few weeks later, he came and he brought this pot, and he goes, guess what story Nick told me about this? And he goes, this is my first wheel-thrown pot. So I think that might have been a story Nick was just telling around. If you have any wheel-thrown pots, add it to this. And then John gave this to Chris. He had really cool glazes. Nick was known for making several of each pot for a tree. Because he wanted to give the best option for the tree. I think like many potters, he started making pottery because he couldn't find the right pot for the tree. Cool thing about this pot is that it's actually Nick's last pot, and you know because there's a little label that says last pot, but also on his shop, right underneath the NL, it says last. So he was very definitive about this was going to be his last pot.
So how many last pots did he have?
That's the question. That's the question. This is for Pauline Muth. Pauline started making accent pots in the winter, just to kind of take up some of the time in the cold Northeast for the spare time she had. This was totally a collaborative display also. She used this rosewood display that David Niddle made her the 2021 National Exhibition for a showing display. I think when Niddle started making this, he had quoted her one price, and then he's like, I'm never making this stand again, just because of all the little details. So definitely give this a good view too. This is a statue that friend and lost wax artist Frank Mihalik made for her and was shown at her memorial. He also made this pin, and Pauline's nursery was PFM Bonsai. What's really cool is that Pauline, if you knew her, and hopefully we all get to know her through these stories, is that she was a great believer in education, and she was a great believer in encouraging other people. So John Stewart was actually at the National Show selling some stands. He came in, and we all kind of wandered into her studio, and she just kind of nudged you and be like, what do you think about this tree? Or like, you know, you should make stands. He's a luthier, he's a guitar maker, so he started making stands. So this is a Cocobolo stand that he made. I purchased them, we're using for this as well. If you get a chance later, look at some of the pictures. One of my favorite pictures of Pauline in her greenhouse, looking at a tiny tree, and the joy she has just made me think, may we all have the joy for bonsai that Pauline had looking at these trees. You know, when you walk through her garden, she would just kind of beckon you and talk about this and this, and then cheese study with Nick Lenz also. This is one of the larches. These are all gifts that were either given to me or other club members, and some of our members put hostas. Mark Arpeg contributed. She loved frogs, so a little frog accent. And just talking about ceramics, when Nick used to visit Pauline's and maybe other gardens, he would make little ceramic things. These little frogs or little people. He made this squid and put it in one of her forests. Sorry to take politics out of it, but he put a little George W. Bush head in one of the bougainvilleas because he said he was of two minds. But Nick was not afraid to be political, but he was also very reverent in what he did. But one one year, Nick came to Pauline's garden, and after he left, she went in the garden and was wondering where did he hide it. So she looked, and she looked, and she looked, and she couldn't find anything. He goes, oh, maybe this is the year he forgot or just didn't put anything. So spring went to summer, summer went to fall. The gold larch needles fell off one of her big forests, and there was this little snake that he called Snarks hanging in the branch. And she said, oh, wow, we didn't forget. So even if we can't afford some of the big pots or the big trees, what we can do is put little snakes in each other's trees and be friends and stay in touch and be community members. So may we all love trees and pots like Pauline and Nick, and may we all continue to hide things in each other's trees and pots so that we build community. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea of this event, right?